We are live. Ladies and gentlemen, what's good? What's popping? There's your boy, the BK Apologist, transmitting live from New York. It's the city. Brooklyn is the borough. What's good? What's popping?
What's good?
I'm glad everybody could be here tonight. We're about to have a very interesting, sensitive conversation. You know, it's been years in the making with my fellow compadre from 360, Context 360. I'll allow him to introduce himself.
What's up, good people? It's your boy CMB, the ambassador, coming at you live one more time. Just glad to be here in the house tonight on this pathway on StreamYard tonight with Alfredo, the BK Apologist. So we're just glad to be in the building tonight. Got some fire for you. I hope you are listening and paying attention. And you're gonna have a good time tonight with the conversation.
Absolutely. So, like I said, this is a conversation that was years in the making, right? But before we really start, I really want to set the tone, and I want to share my screen because I want to share something with you guys real quick. All right, just so that we're on the same page here. Okay. All right. Is it sharing? Yes, it is. Great. So 2 Timothy chapter 2, 24 to 25, it says, "And the Lord's slave must not engage in heated disputes, but be kind toward all, an apt teacher, patient, correcting opponents with gentleness. Perhaps God will grant them repentance and then knowledge of the truth."
Amen.
The reason why I share that, because I really want to set the tone for this conversation. This is not a dragging session. You know, we're not attacking people, right? There will be no mudslinging in this channel ever. That's not what me or Colin ever do.
Facts.
You know, so today we're going to discuss, one man's experience with the SDA Church. This is not everyone's experience. This is one man's experience. You can agree and disagree. That's fine. But we just want to get insight for someone who basically grew up with this. So, and he still has a lot of loved ones who are still part of the SDA Church. Is that correct, Colin?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So he's not going to be disrespectful to his own family. Like, that's just not going to happen.
Right.
And I won't permit it here anyway.
Right.
So,
right.
You know what I mean? So let me just stop sharing here. I see a couple people here. I see my man Darrell Bowens. What up, D? We got Beatrice. Peace. What's going on?
What's up? Peace, everybody.
So yes, Colin. So you used to be a member of the SDA Church.
Yes, sir. Born and raised, third generation. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. So my grandparents, if I remember correctly, they were raised Anglican. Or Methodist or something like that. My mom told me that they were going to both churches from time to time, just really what was close. And some of us that have been listening to us for a while that know my heritage, my family's Jamaican. And if you know anything about the island of Jamaica, over 50% of the population 80% of the population is Protestant, Christian. Okay. And I think back in the day, it used to be over 50% of those. The numbers probably have changed by now, but over 50% of those people, Protestant Christians, non-Catholics as it were Seventh-day Adventists. So Jamaica, the island, is a hotbed of Seventh-day Adventism. So if you're not SDA, you know somebody who's SDA, or you were raised around, so your grandmama and them was SDA, or what have you. So that's kind of the thing, all right?
Okay. So what are some of your most fondest memories being a part of that family?
Oh man, I tell you, like my mom, she's oldest of 11, so like lots of aunts and uncles and everything like that. So as being the oldest, most of my cousins are much younger than me, on her side anyway. And so just growing up in the large church that I did, it was a fairly large church, actually the largest church in the city that I grew up in. If you know what city I grew up in, and I say it a lot, you'll it's very easy to know what church I'm talking about. But just for the sake of tonight conversation, I'll just kind of keep it brief. But large church. And it was actually all the friends that I made growing up there, and when you talk about friends, you talk about friends from cradle roll
Wow.
up until now, you know what I'm saying? So
Wow.
like a lot of our moms were pregnant at the same time, like legit, man. All of our growing up like that, man, and some really good friends that have grown up, and like I said, we're in our 40s now, so like years and decades of just common interests, growing up 90s hip hop kids. So we going out there doing, being bad boys in the club and all this kind of stuff together and all this kind of stuff.
Okay.
It was all good, man. And so things like that, my college experience, I would never trade any of that stuff. I had a great childhood for the most part. A couple of things kind of helped shape me who I am, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, that kind of thing is beautiful. It's good stuff.
Great. Actually, let's get into that right now. What are some important life lessons that has actually helped you from growing up with the SDA?
The life lessons. That's a good question. Break that down for me. What
are some positive things that you learned there that you still carry on to this day?
Oh yeah. Okay. So the that kind of thing. The value of friendship, the value of family, right? Like if you guys know anything about Seventh-day Adventism, the name is out there, but the community is extremely small. And based on where you went to school, with the churches that you went to, and things of that nature, you've heard of like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right?
Right.
Basically, it's the same thing if you said there, fitness, man.
Everybody's connected. Everybody's connected.
Pretty much, in some way, shape, or form. It's not hard to find somebody that knows somebody else. And like I said, I graduated in those that are friends of mine on Facebook. They know I graduated from Oakwood University, which is a HBCU. And it's the only Seventh-day Adventist HBCU. And like I said, you meet people literally from everywhere on the planet. You know what I'm saying? And that was one of the things that was great. I grew up, like I said, in Canada. I moved to Florida. So a lot of my friends are from the way north, the way south, the Caribbean, like Liberia. Met some really good friends from Haiti. So I say to all the Haitians out there, so like a lot of people like from there. Knew a girl from Palau, the island of Palau in the Pacific, man. Fiji, grew up with people from Fiji and the Philippines, in academy, and all that kind of stuff there, growing up in middle school and high school and stuff. So I mean, you meet people literally from everywhere, and like I said, it's a small community. So again, if you didn't grow up with them, you know somebody, you went to church with them, or they know your cousins or something like that. They've seen your baby pictures.
So it wasn't just church per se, but it was also some of your education as well.
No, man, it is, bro. It's Seventh-day Adventism, right? And we'll get into the some of the denominational types of teachings and stuff like that. But it's a very, very, very closed community, So with that said, like you're not gonna escape, right? From that kind of thing. People know you, and they know your family, and they went to school, back in the day, and all that kind of stuff. And so that was all good.
So even though it's a global thing, it has a small time vibe to it as well.
Yes, absolutely. And that's one thing I'll say this. So like for a lot of people, especially of course you get from the name Seventh-day Adventist. So for those that don't know, and I'm going to answer your question in a second, brothers, but Seventh Day means that they focus on the 7th-day Sabbath, the weekly Sabbath, right, which they believe is from Saturday sundown, or Friday, sundown to Saturday sundown, right? So that would be the 7th day of the week. The evening and the morning was the first day. You get that from Book of Genesis, right? And then Adventists are looking forward to the second coming of Christ, the visible return, right, which we all are. So on Sabbath, right, that is what the whole week revolves around. You know what I'm saying? You go to church, that's when you go to church. And so like Sabbath dinner, a lot of people talk about Sunday dinner, Soul Food, the movie, and they gather out cooking, well, you wouldn't cook necessarily on Sabbath. You'd have ideally you'd have your food cooked and ready to go.
Right.
But like Sabbath dinner is huge. So I mean, if you don't have any place to go on Sabbath dinner, for Sabbath dinner, that's your fault, because people have over an abundance. People share. That's one thing that we brought with us, man. Like I said, we went to down to Oakwood, Huntsville, Alabama. So we down there, and a few people would have apartments off campus, and so every weekend, it was almost like a potluck. So we would go to so and so's house, but next week it's at so and so's house, or next week it's at so and so's house, and we would chill and we'd all cook together, eat together, fellowship, spend time, and bond. Right. And that's what you grow up doing at church. So a lot of churches will have potluck. When I moved to Ohio, that was one of the things. Basically, we're just, there's a couple of churches in the area that kind of rotated what weeks of the month they would have a potluck. And so that's where we was going that Sabbath for dinner. Wow. For church, but
right. So I want to test this theory about how you guys know each other, because we have Laid Back Gamer.
What's up, Laid Back?
I grew up in the SDA Church, as well as even became a deacon. So does Laid Back Gamer look familiar to you?
Can't say. Laid Back, do you know anybody that went to Oakwood?
Come on, Laid Back. He's probably a younger cat. He's probably,
Okay.
So
it was like I was there from 96 to 2001.
Okay. It's taking time for them to answer, so it's all good.
Good deal. Yeah.
But so what year did you officially leave? Remember the actual year?
Yes. It was 2000. Well, I should say I remember. It was 2002, 2003. Right in there. By that time I was done. Right. I had questions well before that. And when we get into the actual final straw, as it were, then we can kind of dig into that.
I mean, I kind of jumped the gun there, but if you can now take us through this journey and where you started having those questions, like what was the inception to you having these questions? Like what kind of got you on that path?
Wow. Okay. So let me kind of go way back. So we're gonna get in the way back machine right here, right? So like the way I was raised, right? I was the youngest by a mile, right? So like the oops kid, we're talking about a decade between me and my sister, 8 years between me and my brother, and so like essentially you're not the only kid, but you kind of grow up like the only kid, right? Wait a minute, let me stop you.
All right, Sweet One MC is saying my husband graduated in '96 from Oakwood.
All right. Okay.
That ring a bell.
Yeah.
You just missed him?
Probably, or my freshman year was 96. So if he left 95, 96, I'd have just missed him. But yeah, I came in as a freshman in 1996.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, you can continue. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, there's more?
Is there more? No, that's it. Okay. Great.
So the way I was raised, right, was basically you got to learn how to fend for yourself. You got to take care of business, right? So like my mom was after my parents divorced and all that kind of stuff. So we, single mom, the whole deal. My dad was around, so I got to spend a lot of time with him and stuff like that, which was good. But if I wanted to learn something, I had to go learn, because there was not a lot of help for homework. There was not a lot of help for this, because mom was working and going to school and this, that, and the third, so I became very studious, right? Big nerd, to be honest with you, and that was fun. So I played sports, I learned a lot, and I would pick up things pretty quick, right? And I would ask old school Seventh-day Adventism, you don't cuss, you don't drink, you don't dance, all that stuff. You don't go to the movies, because of various things we can get into in a little bit. Right. But you don't do that stuff. Right. Yes, I was caramel crump, believe it or not.
The shocking truth.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, so you had to learn a lot of things. And so I would ask questions. Right. So, again, I'm in my 40s, y'all, so don't judge me. But when it was huge, when we got cable, it was huge when we got a VCR. Right. Y'all remember Google that for y'all young folks. Right. So we got a VCR. We would go and we'd rent movies. Usually on Saturday nights, we go and get some after church, after AY, whatever. Go get something to eat.
What's AY?
AY is Adventist Youth. So that was like the youth program in the evenings.
Okay.
Right? They used to call it MV back in the day.
Okay.
But yeah, so AY, you go after that evening program because basically you want to spend your Sabbath hours doing Sabbath stuff, right? So yeah, so I'll just skip all that right now, but we'll get into it. So basically, we would go and rent movies, right, from Blockbuster or whatever, and then you bring them home, and I'm like, well, how come we can't go to the movies? You know, like, and it's like, what do you mean why we can't go to the movies? We're not supposed to go to the movies. Yeah, but why are we going to the movies? We're not going to the movies, but we're bringing the same thing home. Like, literally, like the only thing missing is better popcorn. Like, what's going on here? Right. So, you know, I would ask questions like that. You know what I'm saying? And I would read my Bible and things of that nature. I would ask questions. A lot of people would say what was above my pay grade. You know, I'm not trying to be like a genius or anything like that. But a lot of people thought I was wise beyond my years in those senses. And I use that to kind of get myself in trouble sometimes. So I would ask questions and like legit questions and serious questions and so forth, right? So, I mean, those kinds of things I begin to ask, and as the doctrines at the end teach deeper doctrine, the older that you got, and go into more details and some of the things that you knew, it would be like, well, it's kind of weird, right? Anyway, the long of the short is this, right? And I'm going to kind of jump kind of ahead here. When you're
let's pause that real quick because we got my man laid back.
Okay.
You said I was part of Ephesus in Birmingham, Alabama. I came on way after you. I'm 32 years old. A few pastors I remember, Pastor Horton, Compton Ross, Pastor Scales, just to name a few.
32. Okay, yeah, because I was long gone by then, bro.
Long gone by then, right?
Yeah.
Right,
but yeah, like I said, if you're at Oakwood and stuff like that, like I mean, like phys ed department, Mr. Roddy and Dr. Shaw and all them people, those my peoples right there, man. I was a phys ed major before I went to grad school.
All right, cool. I'm sorry. Continue.
Yeah, that's all good. Lay back. Thank you for answering. But yeah, I would ask a lot of questions. Now, when you're raised Seventh-day Adventist, the doctrine is taught that it's salvation by grace through faith. Any Christian would believe that.
Right.
Okay. The way that it's practiced is different. And what I mean by that is this. Seventh-day Adventists teach that the organization, is the true remnant church of God that is spoken of in Bible prophecy.
Mm.
Okay. That is the true remnant church. However, in order to be a part of that remnant church, you can't just be baptized and join the church. You have to agree to the fundamental beliefs. There are 28 now. There used to be 27 back in the day. Okay. 28 fundamental beliefs, and one of which is to believe in Ellen White as a last day prophet. Okay, we can get into that in a little while, but that's part and parcel. And basically, the way that's practiced is salvation by works. You have to keep the Sabbath, right? They have a doctrine. We're getting kind of heavy into that. I was hoping to save some of this for part 2. We get the details later, but there's a doctrine called, in layman's terms, like the shaking, right? And so at the end times,
say it again. It's called what?
The shaking, right?
The shaking.
The shaking, right? Okay. So basically, or sifting even, right? And so basically what it is, right? At the last day, right? When the national, or I guess international Sunday law will be passed by the conglomerate of Roman Catholicism and other world government, one world government. A lot of people believe in that sort of thing. In the end times, that will be headed up by the Pope or something of that nature, Antichrist and so forth. Then those that are involved in the church will be viewed as the Seventh-day Adventist Church will be viewed as enemies because they do not keep Sunday, right? They hold to the Sabbath, the true Sabbath, and because they believe that, they actually believe that they're going to be persecuted, that their family members are going to turn on them and turn them into the government, and you're going to be running into the hills, all this other stuff. So if you know anything about Pathfinders, like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. Right. So you learn survival skills and how to build fires and edible plants and so forth like that. Wow. Basically, in the last days, you're going to need all those skills in order to survive.
Wow.
Because you keep the Sabbath. right? So
Wow.
that's kind of where that goes, right? So in essence, the way that it's practiced, and I'm kind of skipping over a lot here for the sake of time, but it's practiced as salvation by works. Okay, now that's background. So when I was high school, right, I was traveling with my mom, and went to New York for one of my aunts. Was getting married, her wedding, and when we drove back, we had a conversation, and I'm not going to get into all of the details. The long and the short is, it was horrific, and the end of that conversation was death threats and disowning.
Whoa.
Like, quite literally.
And this is from your
from the conversation. That's the conversation.
But the conversation with who again?
No. Just I'm getting into like the whole problem. So this is me and my mom talking, right?
Oh wow. Okay.
And so like the short version is there was death threats involved, and I was disowned at the end of the conversation. By the time I got home, and that really hurt my soul. Right. We've since made up. We've since reconciled. So thank God for that. However, that really kind of rocked me. And with most people that have that kind of traumatic experience, the thing that you do is you blame God. Right. A lot of people that you were raised in church and become atheists, a lot of them, not all of them, but many of them have had some sort of trauma, right? Mama didn't, Big Mama and them died, or they killed my boy in the street, or whatever. I lost my whatever, and those are some serious things, and it's some kind of serious traumatic event. And that was mine. And so I blame God, because ever since I was a little boy, we was heavily involved in church, right? My dad was involved in church. My mom used to sing the choir for a little bit and everything like that before things happened, and like heavily involved in church, singing, teaching, even at a young age, being recognized as a leader and kind of being raised up as an AY leader and all that kind of stuff from a young age, and so that kind of thing, it really hurt me. So I blame God. I'm like, how can my mentality was this, y'all? How could God allow something like this to happen to me after I've done so much for him? Okay. Immature. Yes. All right. But that was the mindset. And that's a lot of people when you look at people that have turned away from the faith. Right. And so that's kind of what that was. And so literally, for about a year, almost a year, I was a functioning atheist, like I would go to church sometimes, I wouldn't, and I didn't care. I didn't believe in God. I was just there just for the girls and just for the jokes. That's how I was there.
Wow. If we could just backtrack just a little prior to that momentous car conversation with your mom, what was the thing that sparked that conversation? Because something must have happened. You must have come to some epiphany that made you feel like I had to have that conversation.
I asked that question, right? And like I said, I don't want to get into all of the things. Right, very sore still, but I asked a question, and it hit a nerve, and it went sideways so fast it wasn't even funny. And y'all, if you're listening to this, and you have unresolved issues, talk to somebody, like literally, because sometimes you may not mean to go off on somebody else, or you might have anger issues or what have you. Talk to somebody professional, get help, and I would recommend Christian counseling, things of that nature, is valuable anyway, but that's that. Right. So that whole conversation, like I said, went sideways real fast. Right. And so a lot of bitterness and things of that nature over the years. Anyway, so
did you leave right after that conversation?
No, not at all. No.
Oh, okay.
So would I leave church or God?
The SDA Church first, then. No. Was it both for you? Like it was like one?
Well, no. Like I said, I would still go to church from time to time, but I didn't believe in God. I was done with God. I cursed God and everything. Wow. Right. Like I was done. Like I said, this don't.
But you were still going. You were still attending
every now and again. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
every now and again. Like I said, basically, I sang with a group, and like we did we did a lot of music arrangements and kind of like a not like a take six. We weren't that good, but
Take four,
but
take four and
we
a half.
did do we did do acapella music.
Take some time.
Yeah, we were pretty good actually, but not take six good obviously, but
Right.
but yeah, we unless we were singing, I didn't care. I wasn't interested in church at all.
Wow.
You know, and that was that thing. So yeah, so I go every now and again, but well.
So, all right. So now, like, but when do you officially like just stop going altogether, though?
Oh, that was after. So let me explain what happened. So this was before college and all that kind of stuff. And people are like, how'd you get up at Oakwood, right? So by the time about a year later, I'm on you remember the firm Foxy Brown and Jay. Yeah. Anyway, so I was listening to a lot of them and their music videos, they would have cigars and all this kind of stuff. So that's what I did, So I would go down to the downstairs shop and get my cigars. Horrible. Anyway, $2 cigar. If you smoke cigars, I don't recommend a $2 one. Anyway, but I was
you was living a rapper video.
I was living my rapper video in my apartment with my sister. But I would do that, and I'm standing on the balcony, man, and I'm smoking my cigar, and like it was night, and it was like the sun's going down, and it's something out of a movie almost. It's like I'm looking, and the colors are just perfect out there, and I'm like, okay, just that simple. This didn't happen by accident, literally living what it says in Romans 1. People are without excuse. You can't say God don't exist if you look at nature, right? And so that's one of those things that I saw that and I'm like, okay, well, if there's really a God, what is this God like? And that started that journey. So I didn't even go right back to church, like for real. I started actually studying different religions, and I happened to take a class in school that was talking about world religions and stuff like that too. So I began to study quite a bit, read a lot, looked at Eastern religions, and a lot of those things didn't make sense. And then I looked at other kinds of things, and that didn't make sense. And I say Eastern religions, I'm like Hinduism, Buddhism, that kind of worldview. And then I was actually pretty close to becoming Muslim. Believe it or not, I had a good buddy who was a Muslim, and he and I would hang out and we'd talk a little bit, so in between mild thuggery, let's say, we would talk religion.
You don't want to incriminate yourself on YouTube, so
that's right. What's the statute of limitations? But various forms of mild thuggery. We would talk religion and stuff like that. And I was pretty close to becoming a Muslim. There was some people that might be listening know where I grew up, and there was a mosque not too far from there. So I actually went to visit a couple of times, and it was interesting, but it didn't really really grab me. And one of the main things that bothered me about Islam was this. When you go into the mosque, you have to wash your hands, got to wash your feet, got to wash your face and all this stuff, right? Before you walk into the place there. And the thing that bothered me is like, wait a second, you have to cleanse yourself before you come into Allah's presence, right? And I'm like, how can a sinful person cleanse himself? And again, like these are the questions that I would ask myself, right? And I'm like, man, this is crazy. And so like, as I began to look at my life and recognize I'm a sinner, I don't belong with God, but I know he's real. Like, how do I reconcile that? Mind you, I grew up in church. The answer should have been obvious, right?
Right.
But it wasn't. And that was the most frightening thing. And then all of a sudden, man, when my mom and I, when we made up and everything else like that, it was coming around my birthday.
How did the rest of your family feel about your apostasy?
They didn't know.
Oh, they didn't know.
They didn't know.
Oh, so just my Dukes knew. That was it.
No, mom didn't even know. No, I didn't live with my mom. No.
Oh, okay.
I didn't live with my mom at that time.
So she didn't know you stopped going to SDA?
She didn't know I stopped going to church. I was living with my sister, and so like we would go often enough, and she'd be like, "I'm driving. You want to get a ride? No, I'll come later." And I would either not show up or, show up at the end of church and get a ride home, to say I was there. You know what I'm saying? Like stuff like that. Like,
what about your pops? Did he know?
No, because we didn't live in the same house.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
So like I said, yeah. So like I said, if I stayed with my dad for the weekend, I'd go to his church, and like I said, I wasn't there to do nothing for real.
So it was a silent rebellion.
Yeah. Yeah. And very few people ever knew. I never articulated that. Right.
Wow.
I would say snide things in church, like, wow, we know that happened, and could be sitting in the balcony in church and it's like, ain't nothing going on. We up there talking anyway. Like nobody's listening. You know what I'm saying? Wow. So like it was a joke, like absolutely a joke, and sometimes we just, church would be going on and we'd be outside. And God bless Brother Richie, one of the deacons, would go down there and y'all get inside the church and whatever, and it's like, all right, cool, and we would go back up there, and sometimes we just leave, the sermon started and we dip out and we wouldn't come back for about an hour or something like that, depending on who was preaching. Right. And that kind of thing was kind of wild. So that happened there. But yeah, nobody really knew. I never articulated that to anybody. I stopped believing. And the horrible thing about that is nobody recognized that because I was doing all this stuff.
Wow.
I was doing all the church stuff. I'd walk in the church. I'd do the church stuff. I was dressed half decent, button up rayon shirt, polka dots or whatever was that.
the Kwame shirt.
Yes, sir. It was some Murray's, the Rays rocking down. You know what I mean? Like all that. So I looked the part, but nobody knew that my heart was like hostile towards God.
Wow.
Nobody knew. And so that kind of thing was really tragic.
So when did you start like picking up that Bible again and really starting to really dig into it?
Okay. After that incident on the balcony and stuff like that, and started studying, and then like looking through these world religions and like really getting into them and studying, right? And that's when you had to dig. There wasn't no internet back then, so you had to go to the library and look some stuff up. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so like after my mom and I reconciled, my birthday was coming up in July, and she asked, what do you want for your birthday? I said, I think I need a Bible. Right. And everyone kind of like looked over like, wait, you said that? Yeah, like, I did. And, I kept that Bible for a very long time. Until I lost it in a move actually some years ago. And I mean, I put some miles on that thing because I needed that, and y'all, I'm telling you, going into this thing, and I prayed this prayer. I said, God, if you're real, show me who you are. And I know a lot of people say, I heard God, the Lord say this, and I heard the Lord say that. No, honestly, I feel like I've heard God talk a couple times in my life, just a couple. And this one, I'm telling you, you can tell me I'm lying or whatever the case is. This is what I heard. This is what I know. I'm praying to the Lord, and I heard this. If you want to know me, get to know Jesus. That's what I heard. Point blank, period. That's what I heard. And so I started in the Gospels, right? Because the Bible's huge, right? Where do you start? I started in the Gospels. And sure enough, it was like reading for the first time. I grew up in church. I know all the stories. I know all the stuff. Wow. And I'm reading this thing, and I never knew Christ was for me. Wow. Baptized, age 10, all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? All everything, right? Never realized God was for me, and in the person of Christ, and his death and burial and resurrection was for me to be saved, right? Wow. And that blew my mind. And this is something that you learn from Cradle Roll. How did I not know that? You know what I'm saying? And that's, bruh, oh man.
So you basically was indoctrinated via culture as opposed to the actual scriptures themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that was just the truth. That's what you know, right? And you never are allowed to really question anything. And like I said, if you know anything about Sunday Adventism and have been steeped in it, the ultimate trump card is this, as Sister White says. right? The inspired pen says, my favorite author says, and you'll hear those little buzzwords. All right. So those folks that are talking to people that might be Seventh-day Adventists, right? That's when you start to hear things. And I'm probably gonna get into way off on that today, but when people say things, they say one thing and mean something else. That's cultic behavior. I don't care I don't care what church you belong to, what group you belong to, camp or no camp, whatever it is that you are in. If people are saying things in one way and meaning something different, you need to watch yourself.
That's a red flag.
Big, huge red flag.
So what we want to do, we want to this is going to be a two-part situation, because what we want to do is when we come back again is have CMB really dive deep into SDA theology and really take a really deep look into Ellen G. White and her connection with the SDA, and and what is the proper apologetic for that particular worldview. But I'm wondering if you can just whet our appetite and give us maybe one little point, to get people wanting the second episode. You know what I mean?
Man. All right. What do y'all want to hear about? Put in the chat. How about that?
Yeah, we can take questions.
There's a lot, man.
Let's play Stump the Ambassador when it comes to SDA. So
Laid Back says, according to Jesus, no one has ever heard the Father's voice.
Ooh, sweet. Look at this. She says, Sweet 1 MCS says, questioning SDA belief system is a no-no.
Big facts. Big facts.
Well, and on this channel, it will be a yes.
Right.
So
right. Laid Back Gamer. I see your question here, brother. Let me pull something up for you real quick and tell me what you think. Okay. I'm looking for the passage with the transfiguration. Anybody know where that's at?
That's in Mark. Is that Mark 6?
Okay.
Mark 7.
Pull up my thing here.
And Sweet 1 says there's tons of points. Right? Yeah, we definitely know. We're going to try to grab one or two.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we can have you guys come back with
I want to read this word for word here and ask the brother what he thinks here. So it's not Mark 6. I'm going to look this up real quick.
Okay.
Use the Googles. All right.
So shout out to, we got Carmel Crunk in the building.
Well, Carmel Crunk, what's up, sis? How you been?
My man Darrell Bowens from well, he's West Coast now, but he's definitely Brooklyn born and bred.
Matthew 17. There we go.
You know what I mean? I'm very happy that everybody's here to check this out. Definitely appreciate you guys checking in. That means a lot. Again, this is something that me and Colin have been trying to do for a while. I appreciate his courage to come out and talk about this publicly, because, that, like I said, he still has family that's involved in this. And
yes.
I don't know if they're frequent YouTubers, but I
shared the link.
Oh, you did? Wow.
Yeah, so they'll show up or not show up, or
I got my dude Thomas White in the building. Was good, bro.
What's up, Thomas? Hey, bro. Hey, we need to hang out, man. Let me tell you how bad of a friend I am. I work in the same city Thomas lives in. And I'm like, oh, we're supposed to get together. And yeah, we have, but we haven't been in a while. So, bro, dinner's on me, bro. For real. Dinner's on me.
Nice. Did you find the passage?
I did. So I'm in Matthew 17. I'm going to read King James because that's the first thing I pulled up. So if y'all offended by King James, get over it. Matthew 17. So the objection is that the brother said that nobody has heard the Father's voice, correct? So here it is. Matthew 17, beginning in verse 1. I'll read through verse 8 here. It says, after 6 days, Jesus taketh Peter, James, and John, his brother, and bringeth them up into a high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them. And his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was as white as the light. And behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elijah, talking with them. Then answered Peter and said unto Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If thou wilt, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elias. And while he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them. Listen close now, brother. And behold, a voice out of the cloud. Well, we don't know who this voice is just quite yet, which said, this is my beloved son, in whom I'm well pleased. Hear ye him. And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face and were sore afraid. And Jesus came and touched them and said, arise and be not afraid. And when they had lifted up their eyes, they saw no man, say Jesus only. So, brother, I would have to disagree with you right here. It says, okay, you're reading from John, and I'm reading from Matthew. So unless you want to start pitting scripture against scripture, brother, when we look at identifying who that voice is, if the voice says, this is my beloved son, and we know there's not a divine mother, right? So we would have to assume that it's the Father. Okay. And let's go to John 5:37, since that's the objection there. Let's go look at that. John chapter 5.
Oh, and by the way, Thomas White says that you're a crappy friend.
Thanks.
Just want to make sure that you caught that. All right. Cool.
Hey, did you say John 5? Is that what you mean? Or did you mean something else?
Yeah, hold up. I'll put it back up. John 5:37.
Okay, yeah, John 5:37. I'm in John 5. That's not the Transfiguration. Is that another passage that you meant? Put it back up in the chat.
Yeah, please. Is that what you was talking about? You talking about something else? Lay back. Just let us know.
No, I'm showing where I got it from.
He says, "No, I'm showing where I got it from."
So let's read John 5. Okay. John 5:37. And the Father himself, which hath sent me, hath borne witness of me. Ye have neither heard his voice at any time, nor seen his shape. And ye have not his word abiding in you, for whom he hath sent him ye believe not. Okay. Now it says, you have neither heard his voice. Okay. Now let's go back up here and see who the you is that we're talking about. Okay.
Got it for links to Pharisees.
Yeah, probably so. All right. In verse 16, right, it says, and therefore did the Jews persecute Jesus and sought to slay him, because he had done these things on the Sabbath day. Verse 18, therefore the Jews sought the more to kill him, because he had not only broken the Sabbath, but also said God was his father, making himself equal with God. And then answered Jesus. So there you go. He's talking to specific Jews here. Not everybody, not anybody has seen God, or nobody can see God. All right, brother. So you want to make sure that we're looking at context. And again, this is on the BK Apologist channel, but our group is Context 360. So you want to make sure, if I can borrow a phrase from Greg Kokel, never read a Bible verse, right? And what that means is you never want to just look at one verse, at the whole kind of where the conversation begins and ends, so that we don't fall into to error. All right. I hope you're not feeling offended by that, brother Layback, but that's kind of where that's at.
Well, a great practical is called the 2020 rule, and it's that whenever you look at a particular verse, look at 20 verses prior to that particular verse and 20 verses after to get a somewhat decent context. Now, of course, you should do way more than that. You should also check the cultural context as well, the linguistics, all that good stuff. But a good baseline would be 20 verses prior and 20 verses after. So I hope that helps you guys out. Yeah. Anybody has any more any SDA? Yes, that's right, Carmel. Context is key.
Access. Yep.
Does anyone else have any SDA type questions for Mr. Ambassador here?
I see one in the chat room, brother. So Carl McCrunk asked earlier, what did Ellen G. White teach SDA? Better question is, what didn't she teach SDA?
Right. So give us something that she taught that we would be surprised that she taught.
That's a good question.
Give us some SDA on Ellen G. White.
All right, and so here's the thing about Ellen White. So while she was alive, right, she never called herself prophetess. Okay, that's kind of funny, but the church today acknowledges or says that she has a prophetic gift. If you were to look at the SDA, I think it's SDA.org or SDAnet.org or something like that, or just Google SDA website or something like that, World Church, and look at their or baptismal vows, specifically the baptismal vows. You got to kind of dig around for those. One of those things is that you have to accept the gift of prophecy is still binding today, which I'm not a cessationist, so I believe that the gift of prophecy is still around. However, it's very specific in terms of Ellen White. So essentially, if you're going to be baptized into that church, you have to accept her ministry.
Wow.
Yep.
So it's Jesus plus one.
So that was his prom date, I guess. I don't know.
Mother Mary and Ellen G. White.
Yeah. And funny that you mentioned that. I was sitting in the class at Oakwood, man, a gift of prophecy class, and Dr. I'm not gonna say his name. Yeah, maybe I should. Dr. Allen had mentioned this. He said, some of y'all in here, and he's talking to the class members, which was upper level theology class, that some of y'all treat Ellen White like she's Mary. How the Roman Catholics treat Mary. And people, you could have heard a pin drop in that class, brother.
She's co-redeemer of Christ, Ellen G. White.
Well, no, she is the one through whom Scripture is interpreted, and we're going to get into that.
That's deep.
Stepped on a whole heap of toes right there with the size 10 and a half right here, dog.
But with the Hasidic Jews, they have a similar situation with Rashi.
Yep.
Right. You can't really interpret the text unless you have his commentary right next to your Torah. Right. So, but yeah, guys, we're gonna have another episode. We're gonna continue this, but this time we're gonna have CMB do a PowerPoint presentation, really breaking down SDA theology. I mean, we're gonna get some primary sources. We're gonna get quotes. I don't know, pie charts, maybe. I don't know. Graph.
No, I got some good stuff for y'all. And to be perfectly honest, I'm hoping I wanted to do this sooner rather than later. So I might do the PowerPoint another time. Okay. Right. But we'll just kind of dig right in here so that you can see. I will have the sources either in front of me or we'll pull them up because a lot of these things are PDFs that anybody can have access to. All right. And so you're going to get a lot. But to answer your question, Carmel Crunk, what did Ellen White teach SDA? Not a whole lot, but her visions confirmed what was the debate of the day. And funny enough, I'm no conspiracy theorist, but seems like most of the things that James White, her husband, or her buddies wanted to there you go. Right. Number 17 of the 28 fundamental doctrines. So when you get to the baptismal vows, that are sweet one, that gets even deeper than that. But the thing of it is, Ellen White's visions confirmed usually on the side of James White. Funny how that happens.
So he was her ghostwriter?
Ghostwriter, the accusation of plagiarism
between the spouses?
No, because like I said, a lot of people didn't want to have and I didn't want to get in all this like an Ellen White banging session, but and this is absolute truth history. When she was about I think around age 11 or 12 or something like that, she was hit in the head with a rock, and she was comatose for a couple of weeks, and so she, for lack of a better term, a brain injured girl that nobody wanted to listen to her, so when she got married and so forth, and her James White was heavy into the Millerite movement, as was her own family, the Harmon family. Ellen G. Harmon was her name, Ellen Gould Harmon. So her ministry wasn't as prophetic ministry, as it were, didn't come about until the failed Millerite prophecy in 1843 and then 1844 afterwards. So there's a whole lot of stuff behind that, Carmel Crunk. So what did she teach? Not a whole lot, except for what she confirmed. And then later on in her ministry, oh, that's a huge question right there, Carmel Crunk. Actually, I'm gonna shoot you a PDF on Facebook or something like that. You'd be surprised about some of that stuff, man. Because she wrote a book called y'all can see the question on the screen, right? So she wrote a book called Patriarchs and Prophets that is part of the Conflict of the Ages series. So there's Patriarchs and Prophets, Prophets and Kings, and basically her commentary slash vision revelation of what actually happened in the Bible. And for lack of a better term, it fills in the gaps. So some of the things are like, well, where was Adam when Eve was tempted? That's a legit question, right? Scripture says that Adam, she gave the fruit to Adam who was with her, right? She says that Adam was away from her, and so that Eve tempted her through her appetite, and so that's why there's a huge focus on healthy eating and things of that nature, healthy and I'm gonna bang on plant based because my boy here is vegan, but there's a huge emphasis on vegetarianism, veganism, and the SDA Church, and to the point actually where it in some cases it can be unhealthy if you do it right. And I know, except my boy Alfredo has been looking good and taking care of himself, taking care of his body and whatnot. You can do plant-based and be perfectly fine. When I was in college, I was perfectly fine. I'll post up an old picture of myself at some point. So my favorite friends have seen that and like, oh my God, you're skinny. You had hair, I was essentially vegetarian when I was on campus, and I mean, I was super healthy. I worked out 6 days a week, 5 days a week, and I was good, but anyway, there's a lot for that.
Sweet One says here, we had to stand in front of the church and agree that ellengwhite was a prophet.
Exactly.
The church was the remnant church, and a few other things we had to say yes.
Exactly right. Those are baptismal vows. There are 13 baptismal vows. Take
13.
that number. Take that number.
Man, all I said was I believe that Jesus died and rose again, and I said Jesus is Lord. That's all I said.
So I break that all down.
That was it. That's all I said.
Right.
Wow. There's a whole litany of things you had to,
You had to abide to that. You had to agree to abstain from alcohol, tobacco in all its forms, right? You had to stay away from all that stuff. And that's part and parcel of a lot of church doctrines that came out of those, they used to call them teetotalers, right? So the late 1800s, early 1900s, temperance movement when they had prohibition and Al Capone and all them with the Tommy guns and all that kind of stuff, running liquor and moonshine and everything else. A lot of those churches advocated for the total abstinence of alcohol and things of that nature. So that kind of was part and parcel of that. So there are a lot. She wasn't the only one, but there are many that did that.
So when do you think we can get back together so you could give us this proper breakdown?
Oh, it's a good question, man. Hey, listen, I'm free. No, not New Year's Day. How about this weekend sometime?
Really? How about the Sabbath?
Hey, right? What's happening in the chat room here, man? What y'all think?
So would you come back Saturday on the Sabbath to hear Mr. CMB get busy on the SDA theology?
Bang, bang. Right.
Bang, bang. We don't beat up people, but we definitely beat up, information. We definitely do that here. So, maybe we could shoot for, actually, I got to talk to my wife first to see if we got anything lined up.
I promise taking my wife to breakfast, so
I don't want to jump the gun, but Saturday might be a good look. Yeah. So, but of course, we will alert you guys. And before we head on out, I have to do some shameless plugging here. That's what we do at BK Apologists. All right.
Shameless.
Let's see here. You can catch me on Facebook at facebook.com/BK Apologists. You can hit me on Twitter with twitter.com/BK Apologists. You could catch me at the gram at BK_apologists. And of course, you're already here on YouTube /BK Apologists. Please, as they say, like, share, and subscribe. I also create urban apologetic, urban hip hop streetwear, would be the best way to say it. We make t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, iPhone cases. It's a very niche market. I feel like there's not a lot of cool t-shirts for our particular community, and I wanted to meet that need and yes, make some coin,
Praise God.
And also something to look forward to, we have the Cyber City Apologetics Conference. It's I don't know if it's the first ever, but it's the first one I ever known of, completely online. It is a complete online apologetics conference for the low price of free $99.
Hey.
It is a free apologetics conference, March 20 to 21st. A lot of your favorite apologists will be in the building. Vocab Malone, Nefertiti, Adam Coleman, your boy BK Apologist, my man SOC will be in the building. And yeah, it's going to be fun, man. We're going to really start probably in Vocab's channel. And then throughout the day, we will go to each and everybody else's individual YouTube channel as a virtual breakout session. And then at the end, we will all join back in Vocab's channel for a panel discussion. So it's a 2-day event. We're going to tackle so many different things, not even funny, and again, March 20 to 21st, more information will be given as we get closer to that time.
All right.
And yeah.
I just wanted to answer a couple questions here. So Thomas White, no, not morning. It'll be Saturday, probably evening, afternoon-ish, something like that. Yeah, we'll get some information out there to y'all through social media platforms, as was mentioned before.
One last question before we get out of here. So, what are your feelings on the Sabbath now, CMB?
It's cool. I ain't got no problem with that. However, it's not salvific. I'll get into much more detail on that early as we go on to part 2, right? Because like I said, we're getting to the breakdown of some of the doctrines there, and so of course we have to address that as well. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna touch some stuff. What's up, Servant of Christ? God bless you, man. And Servant of Christ, we appreciate you for being so active in some of the other groups as well too. So bless you, brother.
So yes, SOC is definitely one of the presenters for the cyber conference that we're going to have. Please subscribe to his channel. He's definitely a very mature and seasoned man of God who also makes t-shirts as well.
That's right.
So definitely patronize him as well. So
Yep. All right. Yeah. So so to answer your question, Quiet Storm, there's a lot to it. So as far as that goes, I'll give you a sneak peek, right? Here's the question, or here's the SDA objection, right? We're to keep the Sabbath today, because it's the only one of the 10 commandments that says remember, right? What's wrong with that? That's for you to think about and mull over till Saturday.
A cliffhanger, people.
What is wrong with that issue right there? What's wrong with that logic? No, I don't know. Quiet Storm. I don't know. That's a good question. Has anyone else left SDA? Some people were not SDA. Yeah.
Right. So cool. So all right, guys. So we're gonna be out of here. Thank you so much. Please continue to share the link. Let people know what we're trying to do here. We want to equip the saints. We want to give people the ability to give an answer for the faith and hope that they have. And also, it's about orthodoxy and orthopraxy, right? It's about properly exegeting the text and also properly executing the text in your everyday life. Right? That is my goal. That is CMB's goal. That's Servant of Christ and many others. We really want to serve you guys in this manner, and I hope that you guys have been edified and continue to be edified. And also feel free to give us, topics that you would love for us to address in the near future. And and we're here to serve you guys. That's what we're here for. So, any last words, CMB, before we go?
No, man. So we'll get the information out as soon as humanly possible on Saturday's podcast or what have you, and we'll try to put the word out, man. So feel free to invite people. If somebody that you know is SDA or questioning or something like that, maybe they're interested in joining. You can take it from me. I'm not going to say don't go. Oh my goodness, but you need to go eyes wide open, because there's a lot of bait and switches that go on there. Sweet one MC said she left, so what's up. There are many that are former SDAs as well too, that are out here. There is there is former SDA fellowships and things of that nature, because it is. I talked about the closeness and the family aspect, and what you don't see when you leave. And I don't want to go into a whole other thing here, but what you don't see when you leave is that there is a significant loss. Right, a lot of times you can get shunned by family members. You can get shunned by churches. You can get that feeling that nobody else understands what you're going through. And it's a lot of people that have left Mormonism, a lot of people that have left JW, Jehovah's Witness, and various other types of groups like that. They share a very similar types of things. I remember real quick, and then we're done. There's a TV show on TLC. It's called like Leaving Amish or something like that. Mm-hmm. Right? And a lot of people, a lot of it was staged and things of that nature. But when they started talking about the family aspect, about when they left, right? I could feel that. I could feel that because I understood what they was talking about in there. You know what I'm saying? And it ain't no joke. And so when you have that, what do you do? You know, so we can talk about that a little bit, but the primary thing we're going to talk about next time on Saturday is the doctrine. So y'all stay tuned, get your popcorn, you know, and answer that question. Remember, why does it say remember?
Right. And CMB is, let me tell you, he's very thorough when it comes to this SDA theology. So he's going to really break it down for us, and he's going to really equip us to really understand, and again, to have an apologetic for that as well. So with that being said, party people in the place to be, this is the BK Apologist signing off. Catch you on the flip side. One.